Hey everyone, welcome back to the Printosaurus. I'm Aaron. Today we have the Sunlu Filament connector. I've had it for a couple of weeks. Finally have an opportunity to sit down and play around with it. And to my surprise, I think it's pretty cool. So I'm going to tell you all about it and why you may want to use it. So let's get to it. So what is the Sunlu Filament connector? Basically, it's a fusion type device, and what I mean by that is you can take two like types of filament, in this case PLA for this example, and you can heat them up and fuse them together, making one solid connection. Now why exactly would we want to do that? Well, a lot of us have filament waste. We have spools of material that are almost end of life, end of the reel. If we started a print with them, we'd run out in a couple of layers. So this is an opportunity to take something where we can actually merge or fuse those colors together and get some longevity out of otherwise useless filament. Another prime example of why you might want this filament connector, your runout sensor. Maybe you don't want to rely on that on your printer. Maybe you have issues with it. Maybe you just don't want to trust it. So in this case, before your filament runs through that sensor and your print stops, you can fuse another spool to that filament before it runs out, and then it would just continue along in the printer. And your print wouldn't stop, it wouldn't be delayed, wouldn't pause, which could theoretically introduce an issue, a layer shift, who knows. So this just kind of avoids that whole situation altogether. So those would probably be my two prime examples of why you might want this device. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use it, and I'm going to do that with the supported filament types. So PLA, PETG, ABS, PC, and PA are supported filament types. I'm also going to throw in the mix some ASA just to see if we can get that to fuse, and I'm also going to try TPU, which I haven't seen anyone try. So just to try, let's see if we can get that to work, and I will give you those temperature settings for that, and I will post them down in the description so you have all those for each filament type, and especially for the ones that they don't necessarily recommend we try. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'll show you how the screen works, and we will start splicing some filament and seeing what works and what doesn't. For power, they give you a USB cord. They don't give you a power brick or anything like that, so I had to find something to plug this into that would reach my desk. I ended up having an extra power supply that actually had a USB plug on it. So their recommendation there is anything 2 amps and above should give you enough power to correctly get this thing to heat up. So we have all that sorted now. We've got it plugged in, and let's come in for a closer look. I'll show you what the screen looks like. All right, so we have our screen here. We hit the power button, and you're greeted with this screen with a couple of up and down arrows and a play button. So if you hit this little play button, what that does is it allows you to cycle through your different filament types. So here you can see us cycling through. We're going to start with PLA for this test because it's a lower temperature, and ideally I want to increase to the highest temperature as I test each filament. And that way we just don't have to wait for anything to cool down. If you want to do a custom setting, which in our case we will because we're going to try ASA and TPU, if you hit the play button one more time, that brings you back to that filament cycle. If you hit it one more time while that is blinking, now you can adjust your temperatures manually and what you would like it at. If you're done with that, you can hit the power button or the play button one more time, and you're good to go. All right, so in order to prepare this device for us to splice, what you have to do, turn on your power button and then cycle to the filament you want. So in this case, we're going to start with PLA, and then it takes about 2 minutes or so to heat up. So while that's heating up, I'm going to show you how to prep your filament. So I have just 2 pieces here, some sample filament that we're going to play with. So what I do, or what I found works best, is take your filament and kind of line it up like that, and then take your snips and cut both of them together. And what that does is it kind of gives both filament pieces the same angle. And the reason why you want to do that is because when you join these together, you want a good surface area for some good adhesion. And in order to do that, the angle appears to work best, and that is also what they suggest in the instructions. So filament is cut at an angle. They give you these little sleeves here. They give you about 200 to start with, and you can buy extras. It's $14.99 for 400 of them, so not too bad, but I don't know, maybe a little bit pricey there. You slide this on one side of your filament, and then you take your other piece and slide it in the other end. And then what you want to do is kind of match those angles so that everything is nice and tight. Now when you put this in the enclosure, you want to apply just very slight pressure. Not enough to cause this, because this is going to melt this whole section. You don't want to put enough pressure to where it starts to press everything completely together, but you just want it to maintain the connection that you have there. You want to make sure everything's touching. All right, so while this is heating up, I'm just going to go over the basics with this unit. So I mentioned the filament types: PLA, ABS, PETG, PA, and PC. The recommended fusion time for PLA is 7 to 8 seconds, 7 to 8 seconds for ABS and PETG as well, and then PA or PC, they recommend 9 to 10 seconds. To preheat, 3 minutes for PLA, 3 to 4 minutes for ABS, 3 to 4 minutes for PETG, and PA and PC, which is 230 degrees Celsius, 5 minutes to preheat. So keep that in mind. Also, this area here can be very hot, so please do not burn yourself. Don't touch this. Just press the little silver button in the front, and then use these little tabs here to press it back down. Don't touch on the very top there. The PTFE sleeves, there's a little cutter here in the back that cuts those, so it actually removes it from the material, which makes things nice and easy. So we are just waiting for this to heat back up. PLA is 185 degrees, and as I mentioned, it takes about 3 minutes to get the temperature. We have prepped our material here. Remember, cut at an angle so that both pieces align nicely. So 45-degree angle would give you a nice diagonal there. Okay, so it's beeped, and now we are ready. So hit the little silver button here, and then what you do is stick your filament right in the center there, press down on this, and then very light pressure. And this will beep again when we are finished. At least it's supposed to. Okay, so here is our first test. Now something to note is, and I'll just show you here, see this? See how flimsy this is? So when you remove this, it heats up pretty much that whole section of that PTFE tube that you put it in. So when you pull this out, make sure and be mindful that you set this on a nice flat surface and give it about 10 seconds. So that's not too bad. Close your lid. Set it in the cutter in the back. Firmly press down on the lid. Then we can remove our filament, and that should peel right off. Okay, so there's our connection, and we will pull. Look at that. Not too bad. So our ABS setting, heating up to 218 degrees. We are about 4.5 minutes in, so a little over their estimate of 3 minutes to 4 minutes. But you know, with anything, sometimes you have to wait. So there we go, we're ready. So same as last time, silver button, lifts up the flap. We've already prepared our filament here. This is the ABS test, so we will just place that down in here and just firm pressure not too much. And the beeps means it's done, so we can hit the switch again, take it out, and we will set it straight down to make sure everything stays nice and straight. We'll close our cover. And while we wait, I'm going to go ahead and cycle this one to PETG. Okay, so we've let this cool. Stick it in the back for the cutter. Everything clips in place. Press down on your cover. And I've had a hard time for some reason getting these covers off, even though it cuts fine. I just don't have the fingernails, I guess, to get it out. All right, so this one, let's see here. Look at that. Very, very strong. We will prep our PETG next while this cools down for the 210 degrees Celsius. So same deal, take your cutters, line your filament up, cut at an angle. Take your sleeve, put your sleeve on one side, push to the middle, and then take your filament, put it on the other side, make sure everything's nice and secure. All right, so now we are just waiting for this to get the temperature. All right, we are at temperature, so we will set this in place. This is the PETG test. Okay. Flip our lid up, gently set this down. Okay, we'll place it in our cutter. All right, so there is our connection there. So how strong is this one? Not too bad. This one looks up. Hold on. So we had some good strength this way, but this one looks like the connection didn't quite bond, and it looks like we can just wiggle this off. Look at that. Okay, so we'll try PETG one more time just to see if we can get a better connection. Our angle may not have been enough, so we'll just try this one more time. All right, yeah, that one looks a lot better. There we go. All right, so next up, we're going to try and customize this a little bit, but at first maybe we will try the ABS setting. So we're going to heat this back up to 218 degrees and just see if we can do ASA. So we're just prepping that filament again. Okay, we have a nice good connection there. And we're going to pop this in. messed up there. There we go. It's real important to make sure that you press your filament together to get a good, nice, solid connection. All right, so we have that in, and we will see what we get. So I tried ASA on 210 just to see, a little impatient, I guess, with heating it up, but just to see if we can actually get it to connect at a lower temperature. If not, we'll try the 218 for ABS. All right, so we made our slice. Wow, look at that. So just to show you here, the fuse did not break, but the actual piece of ASA did. So this has probably got a little bit of moisture in it. But just to show you, so 210 degrees Celsius fused ASA perfectly. And I left it in there for about 8 seconds. And that's what I ended up with. So ASA, if you have it and you need to fuse some together, it looks like that is a viable option with the filament connector. Now the next experiment, I don't really know what to expect. This is TPU. We're just going to see, because we have it, we'll just see if we can actually get it to connect. Stick this in here one more time, one last test, and we'll see what we end up with. Probably needs a lot higher melting point than even 190, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on this one. All right. That looked like it went together a little bit better. So we'll see what we end up with. We're going to let that cool for a second. All right, so here's our TPU. 190 degrees Celsius did it. It did fuse it. We were able to successfully fuse our PLA with no issues using the settings Sunlu recommended. Same goes for ABS. Our PETG test, it took 2 attempts, but I think that was more user error with the first one. I just didn't have it tensioned enough to get a good solid connection. You kind of get a feel for this, is what I found as you do this. The more you do, I think you just get a better understanding of what you're working with. Now, I did throw in some filaments that were not on their recommended list, that weren't in the instructions. Then that was ASA and TPU. ASA worked great. And TPU, which I expected, was a little bit fussy. It took 3 or 4 attempts to finally get it to fuse, but as you can see here, it's still a nice solid connection. So if you need to, it appears you can do more than what's recommended in terms of filament type. So I was planning on taking all of my PLA scraps and throwing them together in one large spool, but I ran into a couple of issues. Some of the PLA that I was using is really, really old, and I had a very hard time getting the older filament to fuse to some newer filament that I had. So much, in fact, that I had to just skip the older stuff. I couldn't get it to fuse at all, but I didn't have any issues with filament that I've used in the last couple weeks, month even. The yellow filament that I have here, that I had the trouble with, I've had this sitting aside for 4, 5, 6 months now, and I think it's just too far gone at this point. But Going back to trying to repurpose these spools, I'd like to revisit this and actually try with a respooler where I can actually put a spool on each side and do it just like you would do like a spool transfer when you're setting up something, say for a bamboo printer, and you have a roll that doesn't fit, you need to transfer it to a roll that does. So I'm looking at some files for that, and I'll have that printed soon. So we were able to test all the filaments that we wanted to test, even did ASA and TPU and had some decent success there. So all things point to this being a device that can not only do what's recommended, but it could splice more, which is fantastic because a lot of us use ASA and other materials. Where I find that this is really useful is for the excess spools to minimize waste. I feel like I would use these for prototyping and things like that. It gives me an opportunity to kind of repurpose that filament for that, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually test print with that today because I need to print a respooler. I thought I had something set up that would work, and it just ended up being a catastrophe. To show you what I mean, I just ended up with this everywhere. So more on that later. I will revisit and do a video on what I print with it and what it ended up looking like. And I wanted to do that test because I wanted to see if there was any failures with the connection, how it went through your filament sensors, how it went through the extruder, hot end, all that good stuff. Make sure just everything worked and ran through freely. I feel like you could tell if you were going to have an issue because it would look very malformed. But as long as you are taking your filament out, setting it on a flat surface right away, it appears to, everything ends up being okay. So I don't think you'll have any issues there. Something else that I think this would be great for is if you have a large print and you're running out of filament and you don't want to rely on that filament sensor, this gives you an opportunity to either pause that print before it actually runs out and splice your new spool on and replace it, or you can let the print continue on and just splice your spool right before it runs through your run out sensor, and then it will just continue to print, no problems, no issues. So that is pretty neat. It is cool that companies are coming up with things like this. If your blade gets dull, it's easily serviced on the back here, which is nice. So they thought about that. So in all intended purposes, this is a pretty well thought out device. As of now, for the unit with 200 of these sleeves, it's $44.99 US. And if you need additional sleeves for 400, it is $14.99. And I think it's $35 for 1,000. So 1,000 would be a lot. I feel like most of us would be fine with 200 or 400 even. So anyways, they have options there. So all in all, Sunlu has put together another great product. So I would recommend everyone have one of these, just at a minimum to be able to repurpose some of this filament that is just kind of sitting around. So that's what I think. I appreciate you guys giving this video a look. Drop some comments below. Let me know if you guys have one of these, if you have any ideas to make this work a little bit better. I did poke around a little bit on MakerWorld and Printables, and there appears to be some trays that people have made for these to set in that work with those filament spoolers. So I'm going to look at those options some more, and like I said, I'll revisit this video with that, and maybe we can come up with something that actually implements this into one of those respoolers as well. So please like, subscribe, comment. Look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.